Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas podcast from still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me down there in Decula, Georgia, my good friend from the University of North Georgia alumni, Matt Green, is here. Matt, we are coming to you live on a Sunday afternoon, taping this, and it is so dang hot. Football season's only a couple weeks away, but it doesn't feel like it because fall could not feel further away based on the temperatures in Knoxville and Decula, Georgia at the moment. So we drastically need that to change because I don't want to go outside right now.
I'm with you, man. It's brutal. I think me and my wife walked the dog at like 9 o'clock this morning. It was just like, this is terrible. We need to get out here earlier than that. But yeah, It's a nice little appetizer for those people who watch European soccer. After I went to London this past year, went to the Emirates and saw Arsenal play. I'm officially an Arsenal fan, so shout out to the Gunners winning the Community Shield this morning over Manchester City. So got a trophy in the trophy case before the English Premier League even starts.
So you're doing the morning soccer watching. You're joining the club at 7 a.m., the early ones?
I don't know. That's die hard to get to that 7 a.m. This was at 10 a.m., so it wasn't too bad. But yeah.
Okay.
The Community Shield is the winner of the previous year's English Premier League versus the previous year's FA Cup winner, which was Manchester City. So I don't know what they do if it's the same team. I don't know. That's a question for someone else. I'm new to the party, but yeah. So Arsenal got one in the trophy case this morning.
There you go. Great start to the day there.
There you go.
Parents were in town this weekend. They just had they're on their way back to Atlanta as we're recording this. So, Dad, maybe he'll be checking out our first pod back after 9 months away a week ago. So, got the bookshelf up. So, Dad was coming through clutch there. So that we got a look behind us because it's been barren the last 2 weeks being back on the pod. So I have noticed you're down to just the Georgia. Did you get rid of the Braves one too, or is it just the camera angle at this
Actually,
point?
Yeah, got a different setup in the office now.
Okay.
So still got those flags over there, but I'm kind of over in a different corner now. So I get this Georgia flag up there. That's the most important thing.
Okay, there you go. Well, Matt Green, speaking of Georgia here on A Pod Divided, we always talk Vols and Dogs first to kick things off. Before we continue our SEC preview series with 16 teams, very convenient before the start of the season for a week here. We did 4 last week. You can check out on this feed for this week coming up as well. We're going to talk Oklahoma, Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Georgia this week as the big buy or sell teams for 2026 and beyond. But Matt Green, we start with Georgia, burning questions each week for Tennessee and Georgia. First up on the Georgia front, sir, the game that you are most curious about on Georgia's schedule and why. It could be because you're like, I'm not sure if Georgia's going to win this. You're curious about it because of just the matchup in general. You're curious about it because of the history. You're curious about it because maybe a lot of pundits are really interested in it. And you're like, I don't really see the intrigue there as much as other folks do. What is it for you on Georgia's 2026 college football schedule?
For me personally, and Georgia starts with 2 cupcakes, with all due respect to Tennessee State and Western Kentucky. And I'm sure you saw the whiteout that Georgia's got going on for that Western Kentucky game week 2. Then at Arkansas week 3. I think the most interesting game for me this season is that week 4 matchup with Oklahoma coming to Sanford Stadium, because I think that kind of establishes maybe what Georgia's ceiling is. Like, obviously, Georgia a year ago, I guess if you were to replace that game with what the corresponding game was in 2025, it was that Alabama game. It was either last week of September or first week of October. Same time frame, and Georgia lost that, but still, rallied off, 7-8 straight wins to close out the season and win the SEC. So that doesn't necessarily, if they lose that game, doesn't necessarily mean they can't run the table and win the SEC. But I think if Georgia wins that game, I think Oklahoma will be top 10, maybe top 6 or 7 coming in to Athens that week. I think if Georgia takes care of business in that game, it just feels like, okay, this feels like a playoff team. Like it almost feels like that lowers that raises the floor for what Georgia season could be. Whereas if you lose that Oklahoma game at home and you're 3-1, now all of a sudden, you're going to Oxford, you're going to Tuscaloosa. Like those are going to be, I think those are probably the two that if Georgia's not favored in any games this year, I think Ole Miss and Alabama are probably the two best candidates for that. So I think winning the Oklahoma early just kind of establishes like Georgia will be ranked 3rd, 4th, or something like that. 4-0, or I guess maybe 5-0, most likely, if I'm already counting the Vanderbilt win. 5-0 going into Tuscaloosa. It just feels like it's a little bit less pressure down the stretch. Whereas if you lose a September home game, I don't know, all of a sudden that intensifies everything. And I'm not even counting, games like Auburn or Florida or even South Carolina or something later in the year. I think even Missouri later in the year. So I think Oklahoma, if you win that one early, get a nice 4-0, 5-0 start, I think Georgia, the chances of Georgia missing the playoff are very low if they're 5-0 to start the season.
I think that's right. I mean, I think the chances are just low across the board. This just feels like I just don't know how Georgia, I don't know how you can put less than 10 wins on the docket for the Dogs. And I know Kirby and company don't want to put that out there because, everyone's got the Dogs going 7-5 in 2026. Everyone's doubting the Dogs here.
Josh Pate did say worst case scenario 7-5.
Did he say that?
Yeah, but I think it's kind of a legitimately worst case scenario. Like if you lose all the losable games, but it's obviously Georgia hasn't lost many of these close games in recent years.
Well, I was also going to say, what is Kirby's worst season at Georgia to this point?
It's got to be year 1, 2016. I think they went 7-5, won the bowl game.
Did they go? I was thinking they went 8-4 his first year. Did they go 7-5?
Yeah, so they won the bowl game to finish 8-5.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that would be 7-5. Georgia would be one of the most stunning regular season developments in the SEC in a long time for me. So many things would have had to have gone wrong. Not even just like the being a little bit unlucky. And I don't know where those are. I guess if we were going to calculate this out, it would mean Georgia lost Oklahoma, Bama, Ole Miss, Florida, and maybe I guess at South Carolina.
Yeah, I think so. That's probably
a lot, man.
No, I don't see that happening.
So silly. Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm not saying they're going to lose to Arkansas or anything, but at least Arkansas, that'll be the time of the year where Arkansas fans have not given up on their team yet. The first SEC game of the season. But yeah, I'm not anticipating a loss for that. Yeah, I think it's literally worst case scenario. I mean, especially if you look at Georgia the last couple of years. I mean, how many 1-score games did Georgia play last year? Like 8. Like almost every single SEC game they had a year ago was a 1-score game. Like the Tennessee game was losable, the Auburn game was losable, the Florida game was losable. So, the Georgia Tech game was losable. So, I don't see that happening. But yeah, that was. If there's bulletin board material to come from Josh Pate's preview, I think that's the one. That's the one Nolan Smith and company will focus on about 7-5.
Interesting. I'm surprised you didn't say it's still Bama until proven otherwise to me. That's the one I have circled. It's on the road in Tuscaloosa on October 10th. Georgia, well, there's no bye in between. So there's some body blows here where you go Tennessee State, Western Kentucky, at Arkansas, Oklahoma at home, and Vanderbilt at home, and then Alabama, Auburn at home, and then you get the bye before Florida. So it'll be interesting to see what that game looks like for Georgia without a bye and just getting to the midpoint in the year. And also just because of how those games have gone and continue to have gone with Kalen DeBoer in there. And the reason I have it so interesting, it might even be less for Georgia, but if you look at Alabama's schedule, they're going to get off to a hot start I think it sets up very nicely. Bama at home, you get Kentucky early, even though it's on the road 3-3, they'll win that game. South Carolina at home, Mississippi State on the road, but really just kind of a home game with how close, Tuscaloosa and all that. Like, I think that'll be fine. Even though I do think Kamario Taylor is going to be a dude at quarterback, and I think Zach Arnett was a really good sneaky hire this offseason for Hail State to get him back in as DC, but I still don't think they're ready to beat Alabama. But you get Georgia after all that, and you're undefeated, and you're like, oh, everything's great. But you get Georgia at home, and if Bama loses that game, they go to Tennessee the next week. They have not won at Tennessee in years now. Like, Tennessee has flipped the script. Like, it's just the home team has won every game in the series since, going back to what, 2020, I guess, because Tennessee lost.
That would have been the last time Bama beat Tennessee in Knoxville, right? 2020.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. And that was, so it's up there. So suddenly Alabama's lost 2 straight. Then they get A&M at home. Still no buys here. A lot of pressure on them to right the ship because you have 2 losses, and we haven't seen a 9-3 SEC team make the playoff yet. They still have LSU on the road and Vanderbilt on the road after that. So if Bama loses to Georgia, they blow that game at home, there's a chance they lose 2 straight, and then they have to be perfect the rest of the way. And there are several losable road games still on that schedule for the Tide and DeBoer. And 9-3, there's no guarantees. I've seen a lot of folks, throwing it out there with 9 conference games. This is the year that we get a 9-3 SEC team into the college football playoff. But that's still a dangerous place to be in if you're Kalen DeBoer in Alabama, because, there's always, it's just a different job. And I think 9-3 would still be a good year for Alabama. And like you and I have talked about on this very program, like, everybody's got to recalibrate their expectations year over year with how different roster building is now, and just how you talked about with Georgia, how many 1-score games they were in. I just think it's going to be really hard to sustain like back-to-back CFP runs and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think Bama, if they beat Georgia, I think they're a playoff team this year. I think if they lose to Georgia, they're going to miss the playoff, and I don't know what that looks like for Kalen DeBoer this offseason. I actually think that's a must-win for Alabama.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say blow the Georgia game if they were to lose to Georgia. Like, there's a chance Georgia's the best team on their schedule this year, but
they have the what would it be? They kind of have the upper hand mentally, I guess. They, just because I think they're going to walk in where they're like, we know that you can't get over the hurdle here, really. And I understand the national championship and all that, but still has been Bama's going to come in feeling themselves. Like, Bama is going to be like, we're going to beat you in Tuscaloosa because that's what we do.
No, that's true. But that's also, are we just going ahead and just assuming a Florida State win for Alabama? Because they did lose. Yes. They did lose to Florida State last year. But no, it's interesting. You got to go back 20 years. 2007 was the last time Georgia beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. They've only played twice in Tuscaloosa since 2007. So it was 2020 and 2024. And obviously 2024 was one of the all-time great SEC games. So I don't think Alabama, obviously, they've dominated Georgia in recent years, but I don't think they have that mental hold over them anymore. Especially, it's not Nick Saban anymore. And also, Georgia absolutely blasted them in the SEC championship a year ago. Like, obviously they lost the first one in Athens early in the year, but that 28-7 was a dominant victory that Georgia had a year ago. And like, that's more telling in terms of what this team's got coming back, the 2 rosters, what they were a year ago. And I don't know, Alabama with that the quarterback uncertainty this year, I think that's always going to be a big game. Georgia-Alabama playing is going to be one of the games of the year in the SEC. But I guess when I'm thinking the most interesting game on Georgia's schedule, it feels like the most logical one that they would lose, either at Alabama or at Ole Miss. So I think just from that perspective, like, if your most losable game, it's like you can still go 10-2, 11-1 with that loss on the road. But losing an early home game to Oklahoma, I think that all of a sudden people start to have some question marks about Georgia. Are they a 3-loss team or something like that if you lose a game early at home? So, and I personally expect Oklahoma to be potentially the best team on Georgia's schedule. So that's not to say that losing to Oklahoma is a bad loss or anything. So I just think I just think it kind of like I said earlier, it kind of raises the floor for like, okay, this should be at least a 10-win team if you're starting 5-0 and you got that top 10 win over Oklahoma under your belt.
That's fair. On the Tennessee side, the game that I am most curious about on Tennessee's schedule this season, I think this will be a surprise because I think what's interesting about the national narrative on this game in particular is fascinating to me because everyone has just kind of circled Texas as a loss. And I think if you asked most Tennessee fans week 4 early on, because it might be a true freshman starter in that game. First SEC game is Texas coming into town at home. There were a lot of folks who were kind of bummed that this was not a night game in Neyland, or at least a prime time, like just not getting Texas in that kind of spot.
Is it noon kickoff?
It's a noon kickoff.
Okay.
Which is 11 a.m. for Texas. I think that sets up. Do you remember in 2022, Matt, when Tennessee played LSU in Baton Rouge at an 11 a.m. kick? Baton Rouge time. Beat the brakes off of them. And no one thought Tennessee, I predicted that Tennessee was going to win that game. I like their matchup, but that was one where no one really had on the upset. This was before Tennessee.
I was doubting the Vols to that point.
You were down the Vols.
Sure.
And I was like, I just kind of like this. And I think Tennessee's got something here. And I think they're going to cook them, especially getting that game early. Because I think a lot of fans wanted that at night, Baton Rouge. And I'm like, I actually kind of love getting LSU at 11 a.m. here. Like, this is a great opportunity where the fans aren't really into it yet. And just, give me that all day. And they surprised them and they just jumped right out of the gate. I think they had a big kick return to start off that game and a lot of stuff, big punt return, and just moved the ball down the field over and over again. And just kind of a lot of LSU fans were leaving early. So that was a great start to that 2022 run. I'm not saying Tennessee's about to go on a 2022 run with a freshman or redshirt freshman quarterback, but what I am saying is I think LSU, Tennessee, the bottom of this at the end of the season, obviously with Lane returning and everything else, like that will get the most publicity, but there's no like LSU is going to be like, oh, we're going to sleepwalk into Neyland here with Lane. No, that's going to be prime time. It's going to be big. I think LSU will have figured out a lot of, all the new transfers. I think if it's going to work for Lane in year 1, I don't love that spot for Tennessee. I don't love getting LSU late in the year with all their transfers. And if Sam's Levitt's fully healthy and you've got all these guys and they're just rolling, like LSU is just rolling, then it's not a good spot for Tennessee. Kind of like Oklahoma getting through the tough part of their schedule and then getting Tennessee during the dart mode game. And they just kind of dominated the Vols in that one, especially on the defensive line. So it's Texas for me. And I think a lot of folks have circled the Texas game as like, Tennessee's going to lose. That's just a loss. And I think there's a lot of Tennessee fans who look at it. I'm like, this is Steve Sarkisian we're talking about here. Like, I'm not saying Texas is not going to be good this year. I think they should be right in the Georgia range of 10 plus wins. Like the expectation should be college football playoff. I'm not a believer that
national
the expectation
championship.
And I don't believe that. Like, I just think, there's multiple rounds now, maybe if in a 4-team format, whatever, but it's just, I don't know. And the SEC hasn't won a national title in going on 4 years now. So I'm like, are we really holding SEC coaches to that standard right now? Because no one's winning if we're holding them to that same standard. So I have some problems with that line of thinking anyway. But for me, I just think there's a lot of pressure on Sark in that one to get them up for an 11 a.m. kick where they might be sleepwalking of like, hey, we're going to be fine. You just have, because I think, when does their Ohio State game pop in here?
That's week 2, I believe.
Yeah, so they and then they get UTSA at home, who is going to have one of the best offenses in the G6. Owen McCown and company, like that UTSA team could be a dark horse. They could be but they're going to give them some problems. I'm not saying they're going to beat Texas.
They're going to lose by 4 touchdowns to Texas.
Okay, I'm just saying UTSA is good this year. Their offense is going to be good. Shout out to Jeff Traylor. But
James Madison was good last year. Tulane was good last year. We saw what happened when they played real teams in the college football playoff.
Hey, Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois and went to the national championship game. They lost to Northern Illinois home. So all that to say, do you trust Sark to just like walk right in, get them in. Like, if they beat Ohio State, they'll be feeling themselves. They'll be undefeated. They'll be like, oh, like just a cakewalk, nooner game in Neyland, not even under the lights. It's not going to be rolling. Tennessee, if they beat Tech, which I think they will, in Atlanta at Bobby Dodd in week 2, they'll be rocking. Neyland is going to be rocking. Neyland is going to be ready. And I think this offense is going to be really good. I think Tennessee's offense is going to be good. If Texas does not come in, take that game seriously, like, oh, we beat Ohio State, we're feeling good, we're going to the playoff. Like, there's just a lot of like, oh, crap. Tennessee's offense has the kind of like, if it starts similar to the Georgia game last year, where you just kind of jump, Heupel and his scheme, they are able to jump on teams sometimes in a way that like it's jarring for the opponent, where they're like, oh God, we got to clean some things up. This is not good. And sometimes their teams are able to clean it up. Georgia has cleaned it up in the second half more times than not in the series, but Bama couldn't clean it up. They're like, oh, we're just going to have problems over the top over and over. Jalen Hyatt, Nick Saban couldn't figure it out in 22. So all this to say, I think Texas is winnable. I think getting Texas in here, I think Arch, a lot of emotions, with the Manning family coming in to Neyland Stadium. There's a lot of pressure on him in this spot. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure leading up to him this game in this spot. I think Tennessee, I think the offense will give Texas some problems. I think that's the kind of one of like, they're going to get hit in the mouth in this game, and I'm curious how Texas handles it. Because what if Tennessee goes up 14-0 early and stuns them, where it's like, and then Neyland's really rocking. I love this noon kick for Texas because I think there's a chance they're not going to take it as seriously as they should.
That's interesting because I feel like by your logic and your comparison with 2022 Tennessee LSU, like this would be a good time to get Tennessee, that they don't have the time to be, it's not the night game that they've been drinking all day and they're fired up. Like you might sneak in there for an early kickoff before Neyland is rocking like it is for some of these huge games. I don't know. I think that's not great for Tennessee in terms of, I think they're one of the teams, depending on who they're starting at quarterback. I guess it doesn't matter who they're starting at quarterback. Whoever they're starting at quarterback is very inexperienced. So that's going to be their first like really big game. They'll have the Georgia Tech game, but it's going to be that first game. I don't think Tennessee will really have their identity, established by the end of September. So I think Texas, I tend to think that's not one of the more dangerous spots for Texas. Maybe like you're saying, it's a trap game. It's kind of the trap game scenario, and they're not circling it as one of their biggest games. So that could work in Tennessee's favor. But yeah, I guess the contrary to that is what you're saying with like Peyton Manning and all the Manning storyline stuff. Like it's going to be a massive, obviously Arch Manning, that's not his dad, but it's his uncle. So there's going to be storylines and everything. It's going to be a big game. So I don't know. I don't necessarily think that's the biggest game on Tennessee's schedule or the most interesting game on Tennessee's schedule, just because I don't think Tennessee needs to win that game. I think if Tennessee loses, 38-24 to Texas in week 4, I don't think that's any sort of an indictment on Tennessee. I tend to think, is it the very next week? No, not even close. I tend to think that Alabama game is the most important game on Tennessee's schedule because you got 2 straight wins over Alabama in Knoxville. And like you said earlier, that they're coming off, that's the week after the Georgia game. Like maybe Alabama's coming off a loss and, now they're going to Knoxville. It's just, it's an even more must win for Alabama, but also maybe they're coming off a win and they're feeling themselves before they're going into Knoxville, and they're sleeping on Tennessee a little bit. So I tend to think kind of the opposite of what we were saying about Georgia, like that Oklahoma game kind of raises the floor for what Tennessee's season could be, or for what Georgia's season could be. I think the Alabama game could raise the ceiling on what Tennessee's season could be. So like, I think even the most optimistic Tennessee fan, and I think I might be talking to the one right here, but I think most Tennessee fans, they're starting 5-1. They all feel good about that. Like 5-1 with a loss to Texas, everyone feels good about that. You start 6-1 with a win over Alabama. Now all of a sudden, okay, this might be a team that can make the playoffs. So I tend to think that Alabama, I mean, I'm not predicting Tennessee to make the playoff, but you start 6-1, you feel a lot better than you do about it right now. So I tend to think that Alabama game is the most important, but I'll kind of sidebar, change the topic a little bit. They've already established the uniforms they're wearing every week this season. Tennessee, have they already said their dark mode or their gray? Because I'm a big uniform guy, and
Well,
it's
I know when
gonna
the
be a
dark mode
damn
will be.
shame if Tennessee doesn't rock some gray or black when playing Texas. We're just gonna see white and orange versus white and orange. That'll be an awful uniform game.
Oh,
Both teams with all white helmets too.
Yeah, they're doing that. There's no way they're going anything other than traditional against Texas.
It's just gonna be orange and white versus orange and white.
Yeah, I think the smoky grays are against.
That's gonna be an awful game to watch from a uniform perspective.
Yeah, it's not gonna be ideal there. I didn't even think about that. You just brought it up, but yeah, no, the dark mode will be, barring a complete upset, Kentucky on November 7th. That seems to be we play them around that Halloween time every year, and then obviously the home game before that is Bama, and you're never going to break with tradition there on the Bama front. So
but they still rock the grays, right? Or do they get rid of the grays?
They do the smoky grays only for the bye games every year. So it's either going to be Furman or Kennesaw. So I would guess they're not going to open the year with smoky grays. So I'll say they wear the smoky grays against Kennesaw at home, but they also might have announced it.
White, orange, white versus white, and orange. I don't know. It's this is why I need to be the uniform czar. I need to be the one who makes these decisions for teams.
Well, it'll be harder during the day with the sun out. At night I think it pops a little bit more obvious. During the day it might be a little bit more. What's interesting though, and I don't think a lot of Tennessee fans would throw this out there. I'm curious what you think. I think Vanderbilt on the road to finish the year is probably my number 2, because you got embarrassed at the end of the season last year. It caused a lot of positive change in the program. You bring in Jim Knowles, you get Indiana's strength and conditioning coach and the highest paid strength and conditioning coach in the country. You get Jim Knowles, like I said, national champion DC. It inspired a lot of change from Heupel, right? Sometimes you need to get embarrassed like that to make some big time changes to try and get to that next level. So I do think that's kind of where things are headed in that front. Good returns thus far from Owings and Knowles, but Vanderbilt's feeling themselves a little bit in this rivalry, right? They have Jared Curtis now coming in. It might be true your 5-star freshman versus their 5-star freshman.
And a whole season underneath your belt at that point. You're more of a sophomore by the 12th game of the season.
And those 2 games before it, Matt, I think they're losing both. I think Tennessee's so the final 3 games for Tennessee: at A&M, LSU at home, at Vandy. You don't want to go out of this season losing 3 straight going into bowl week. It's going to get very toxic if you finish the season with a loss to Lane at home and at Vanderbilt for the 2nd year in a row. Vanderbilt's the second most interesting game to me because that's a must win. You have to beat Vanderbilt this year. And because I also think you have to stop the bleeding. I don't think the 2 most losable games to me on Tennessee's schedule this year is at A&M and LSU at home. I think those would be the biggest stunners to me if they were able to pull either of those out. So if you lose those 2 games, guess what? You got Vanderbilt on the road the end of the year. And I understand Vanderbilt's going to have a step back, but they have they might be playing just for a bowl. Hey, we beat y'all last year. We're happy to play spoiler. We got our 5-star. And if he balls out and Faison or George struggles, it can get very toxic very quickly here. So Vanderbilt's important. They have to beat Vanderbilt this year.
I do agree that that's a must win, but you would be more surprised if Tennessee beat LSU in game 11 than you would beating Texas in game 4.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I could see LSU being a 4 or 5 loss team. I don't think there's any scenario where Texas is a 4 or 5 loss team. This is year 1 of LSU. I just don't know really what the true expectations are. Texas is one of the 4 or 5 shortlist national champion picks by most people. I don't know. LSU has one of the wider ranging, one of the higher variance teams. I have almost no idea what to expect from them this year.
I wonder if LSU had this exact same roster and staff. Keeping Baker was huge. I think he's an elite defensive coordinator getting Charlie Weiss Jr. to come through too. Obviously an elite play caller with Lane. I just think if this had been the way I look at LSU this year is if this was year 3 Lane in Baton Rouge with this roster, we would look at them the same as Texas. Like, I think the rosters are pretty
But this
comparable.
is in Knoxville, right?
Yes, it's in
Okay.
Knoxville. I'm just saying there is so much talent on this LSU roster. And if Sam Levitt's healthy, like this is, I mean, Harlem Berry, 5-star guy. You have Dylan Jones coming in there. I mean, you've got Jordan Seaton as your blindside left tackle. He's a first-round talent. The receivers are loaded. They brought in Trey Wilson. They brought in Trey Brown. They have Winston Watkins Jr. They have Jackson Harris. They have Jace Brown. I mean, and then you look at the defensive line, like Jordan Ross from Tennessee. You brought in Princewell as well. Whit Weeks is back for what feels like his 13th year of college football. You get DJ Pickett back wearing number 5. You have Ty Benefield coming in.
I haven't heard about that.
Yeah, it's a big story. So I just think this LSU roster is loaded, and it's just a lot of pressure to put on a first-year coach. But if you like, I think that getting LSU later in the year is worse than getting them at the beginning, because I think a lot of these guys are going to get comfortable in the scheme, in the new system, and everything else. That if LSU is going to be a freight train this year, it's not going to be out of the gate. It's going to be towards the end of the year, and I think they might be a freight train by the time they get to Knoxville. And Lane wants to beat Tennessee and Knoxville and all the craziness that happened last time. Like, I would just be very surprised if Tennessee beat LSU. The most surprising would be A&M though. Like, I think A&M's the least likely that Tennessee wins. That's just that'd be pretty wild.
I think that's definitely the toughest road game on their schedule, without a doubt. That's the one you're circling the most.
But I'm just sneaky. I'm not ready to predict. I still got a month or so to predict Tennessee beating Texas on this very program, Matt Green. But I'm like 50-50 right now.
All right.
I want to see what Texas does against Ohio State first. Because if Texas loses to Ohio State, my optimism goes down a lot. But if they beat Ohio State and they're feeling themselves a little bit, come in here for an 11 a.m. kick, Tennessee goes up 14-0 early, surprises them. I could see some unraveling from Sark's team there. I could see some unraveling.
Okay.
Wouldn't be the most surprising, is all I'm saying.
It might be one of the more surprising results for a lot of people, I will say.
That's probably true. Well, Matt, our big theme here as we continue on our SEC preview series, essentially on our buy or sell 2026 teams. Next up, Oklahoma. Kind of talked about them a little bit on Georgia's schedule. I think you and I are pretty bullish on them, but are you buying or selling the Sooners in 2026 and beyond?
And as we said last week, not everyone's got the same expectations in terms of buying and selling. I don't know how many people are picking Oklahoma to win the national championship, but in terms of them making the college football playoff in 2026, I am buying the Oklahoma Sooners. I think they had, if not the toughest, one of the toughest schedules in all of college football last year. And they went 10-2 with a banged up John Mateer for at least half the season. I think a lot of the projections on Oklahoma is about John Mateer. It's because it all felt like they weren't. It's kind of interesting, kind of the narrative around them. And I'm hedging my bet here, because there was this idea that he was the Heisman winner like 4 or 5 weeks into the season. They also played almost nobody except Michigan, like the first 4 or 5 weeks. So yeah, he looked damn good, balling out in those first few weeks. And I just like how he plays. I just like the energy he brings to his team. He's just kind of one of those guys. He feels like an engine that kind of makes the team go. But I think that there's a projection of after that broken thumb and they lost to Texas, with the broken thumb and everything, he just wasn't the same after that. And so if you're getting the guy that, people were calling the Heisman winner after September a year ago, if you're getting that good version of John Mateer the entire season, and, obviously Washington State's competition they're playing in 2024 is questionable, but if he's doing what he was doing, at Washington State in 2024, and he's that legit dual threat, one of the better passers, one of the better running quarterbacks in the country, I think the sky is the limit for this team. We talk a lot about offensive gurus in college football, but they almost feel like they're a dime a dozen. There's just so many guys that have elite offensive philosophies and all that. there's a very few defensive just masterminds in this sport. And I kind of, because of that, I tend to value that more than the offensive mastermind, just because there's so many more of them. Brent Venables is one of those few elite defensive minds in the game. And of all the programs to make an elite defensive program, Oklahoma was an absolute joke on defense for all of the 20 teams, essentially. Like that team, you go back to the old school Bob Stoops days, and obviously Bob Stoops was a defensive guy when he came into Oklahoma. Like they played elite defense in those first 5-10 years of Bob Stoops, but it's been a while since Oklahoma was playing that way. Brent Venables is obviously a reason back in his first stint at Oklahoma. But now that he's taken over as head coach, I think Oklahoma's back to playing that elite defense. I feel like your floor is much lower when you can play elite defense. If you're holding teams under 20 points a game, like you can win just about every single game you play. So I'm pretty high on Oklahoma. You look at their schedule this year, like obviously they beat Texas 2024, lost to them 2025. Like I think that's obviously the most important game on their schedule, because I don't think they are going to be favored coming to Athens. If you lose to Texas and you got the bye between Georgia and Texas, you lose to Texas and you're most likely 3-2. I guess I'm skimming over that at Michigan week 2. That's a pretty massive game as well. But I think if they're 5-1, that would include a win over Michigan and a loss to either Georgia or Texas. I think this team is a playoff team because this schedule, it's still tough. It's 9 games now instead of 8, like everyone in the SEC. But I think this is going to be one of the better teams in the SEC. And they might, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they're playing in Atlanta at the end of the season.
You know what's funny? And I think it's so interesting because I think you and I are both like, who do you think has a safer floor, Oklahoma or Texas in 2026? Because I think it's Oklahoma.
I do too. I think Oklahoma, and it's because of that defense. And I know Texas has a good defense too. That Texas has so many players. They're loaded all over the place.
But new defensive coordinator Will Muschamp like we assume it's just going to be like, hey, quick, like a quick turnaround. But I mean, Oklahoma's 4th in total defensive yards per play allowed last year. One of the best defenses in the sport. Like,
yeah, they definitely
get him there right away. I don't know. We'll see. They have the talent with Colin Simmons and company, but Oklahoma just showed it.
And they lost our Mason Thomas, and he was an absolute game wrecker a year ago. But I tend to trust Oklahoma more. And then, so if they can get to 5-1, I think that's massive for them. But also, they could be 4-2 and still, be still in a good position to make the college football playoff. But then in November, they get Ole Miss and Texas A&M in Norman. So that they at least have those games at home late in the season. But I think those are also going to be 2 of the best 4 or 5 teams in the SEC this year as well. So they could have 4 of the best 5 or 6 teams in the SEC on their schedule. But I still and Michigan, but I don't know. I still trust Oklahoma and their ability with John Mateer and company this season.
I agree. I think John Mateer year 2 with Arbuckle in Oklahoma, but year 3 with Arbuckle as a whole, because he came obviously with Arbuckle from Washington State. The thing I like the most about Oklahoma, maybe this year in terms of offense, because they beat Alabama and Tennessee last year with John Mateer not throwing a touchdown pass. They won both of those games without him even. I mean, his numbers were not great through the air. I mean, 14 TDs, 11 picks, a lot of completion percentages below 50 in some big games. It wasn't like he is just a warrior. You look at the carry count and you're like, can a guy withstand it? And then you look at his size from SEC media days and you're like, John Mateer he looks like peak Tim Tebow kind of to me in terms of just his frame, where it's like, all right, maybe he's one of the few who can withstand that kind of just pounding on the ground in the SEC. But 9 conference games this year, like, are they going to be able to protect him a little bit more? And kind of, is he going to be able to take fewer hits so that he can stay healthy for the long haul? But I do think the thing that I like the most on offense this year versus last year, and why I'd probably buy more stock here, I think Parker Livingstone and Trell Harris are sneaky huge additions for them. I don't think they're deep at receiver, but they've been destroyed by injuries and depth at that spot the last couple of years. And I think that's kind of kind of hurt their ceiling a little bit. I think Satagna, who's back, he was their best receiver last year. Isaiah Satagna III. He's a player. I think he's just his most consistent safety valve. But like I said, Parker Livingstone was good. It wasn't like Texas just wanted to move on from him. It's just like you got Cam Coleman and company. It was just, you know what I mean? Like, it's just you kind of have to make tough choices in the offseason. Parker Livingstone's a good receiver. Like, and the production, you look at what he was able to do last year at Texas. I mean, he had 6 TDs, average 18 yards a catch, 516 yards, 30 catches. Like, he had a really productive year. That's all they need. And then Trell Harris was really good last year at Virginia. So there's a lot of proven production, I guess, at the top of their depth chart for John Mateer this year. So I think Oklahoma's playoff team. I think we're the same. I think Venables has righted the ship. I think it's a big year for John Mateer and company. I think he should be a Heisman finalist based on where things stand with them. I think I would pick Oklahoma as a safer college football playoff bet than Texas. And I don't know if a lot of folks would feel the same way that you and I do.
Yeah, I'm not. I go back and forth a lot because I think we're just all convinced that Mateer is a lot better than he was than he was a year ago, because 14-11 is not impressive at all. But just playing through the injury, I think that's just a huge part of it. But yeah, when we were doing our making our first team all SEC picks for the Voice of College Football, and I was going through some of the wide receivers in the SEC, this is one of the more unproven groups of receivers, I feel like, in the entire conference this year. Like, I feel like it's just not a very deep.
It's not deep, but the top three is good.
And are you including Isaiah Satania in that top three?
Yeah, he was great last year.
Yeah, I think he is. I think he's a good player. I don't know if he's great, but I think he is one of the better playmakers in the SEC this year. Like, I think we're all assuming Cam Coleman with competent quarterback play is a top 5 pick, because that's what he looks like as far as a template goes. But like, it's a pretty huge drop off once you get to like from him to like Ryan Williams to Ryman Coleman Williams to Satania, and then I'm blanking on the dude from A&M who's actually who I picked first team instead of
Carver.
Mario Craver. Yeah. So I mean, if he obviously without Concepcion, he's got big shoes to fill, being the number one option for A&M. But it's not a loaded group in the SEC this year, and at the wide receiver position. And I do think that all of that is to say that Isaiah Satania is one of the more explosive home run hitters in the conference this year. So that'll work in Oklahoma's favor.
I mean, Trell Harris was a great receiver on a good Virginia team last year. Virginia was in the ACC title game. Like, I think obviously the step up in production. Now, like I said, Parker Livingstone just played an SEC schedule. I mean, he was a good player on a good team last year. Like, there's no stars in this receiver room, but I don't think they need stars. I think they need 3 healthy, good players at that spot that Mateer can spread the ball around. Like, I think the defense is going to be good enough where, man, you just need to give Mateer some options. Like, you just need a little bit where it's not all on Satania's shoulders, you know? And they also got to run the ball better too, because that was the thing last year. Bama gets all the crap about not being able to run the ball, and it was historically awful for the Tide running the football. But Oklahoma also had problems running the football and made the playoff, but they could not run the ball to save their life either on the ground. So that's a big thing for them too to clean up this year.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Next up, Matt Green, Ole Miss. What say you?
Maybe I'm biased here. Some people tend to be when you lose to a team, you're like, oh, that team's great. You know, that's what all the reason we lost to them. I was ready to give oh man, why am I blanking on his first name? Jalen Milroe. I was ready to give Jalen Milroe the Heisman after the 2024 Georgia-Alabama game, and turns out that's the best he was ever going to be in his life, was that game. So he fell off a cliff after that. But Trinidad Chambliss, dude, this guy, I don't care what his height, what his weight is. Like, this guy should be the number 1 pick of the NFL draft. Like, this guy is the best player in college football, as far as I'm concerned. Like, I see all the hype about Dante Moore, about Arch Manning, about, oh man, CJ Carr, like so many guys. I'm just like, did you guys watch college football in 2025? Like, Trinidad Chambliss was the best, is clearly the best returning quarterback in college football. Like, it doesn't even seem close to me. And you have him and the best running back in college football also on his team with Kewan Lacey. We don't know. I think it's easy. Easy is an exaggeration, but it's easy to take a team where the foundation was already built by Lane Kiffin and everything, and take that team into the playoff with a chip on their shoulder, with everything going on. Like, I think that's easier for Pete Golding than to actually be the guy running the show week in and week out. Like, I don't think we even know exactly how much Lane Kiffin impacted this team on a week-to-week basis. Like, he was calling plays, right? Or did he stop calling plays last year? I believe he was
No,
still
it
a play
was Charlie
caller, right?
Weiss.
Okay. So you lose Charlie Weiss Jr. and you lose Lane Kiffin. Like, that's a massive X factor for what this offense could be this year. But the fact that so much of what Trinidad Chambliss does seems to be improvisation and everything, and he's just a playmaker. I'm not looking at their schedule. Let me pull up their schedule as well. But I couldn't really be higher on Ole Miss and Trinidad Chambliss this year. I'm definitely buying it. This is a playoff team again this year. I don't think they play anyone out of conference really, right? Louisville in the opener. Obviously, that week 3 game with LSU is like the game that the college football world is circling right now. And I don't think Oxford, Mississippi has ever been the game that everyone in college football is circling, but that might be the game of the year that everyone wants to see. You got at Texas, you got Georgia, you got at Oklahoma. Like, those are potentially the 3 best teams in the SEC. So it's not an easy schedule. And you get 2 of those or 1 of those at home. I'm buying that this is a playoff team again. I don't know that they're a Final Four team. I don't know that they're going to get any further than they did a year ago, but I think this is going to be one of the more dangerous teams week in and week out in the SEC.
I think I'm with you this year. It's like I'm buying stock this year. I'm not buying stock past this year. Like, I think the post Chambliss era, Golding I'm interested in, because like we talk about it where it's like the thing that Ole Miss was awesome at last year. I mean, the defense was solid, but it was the offense, like you said. Like, it was Lane and Charlie Weiss Jr. and Trinidad and company and Lacey, and like that was the engine that made this all work. This what like the scoring defense. Let me pull it up last year for Ole Miss. They were 37th. If they had kept Charlie Weiss Jr., I'm still buying Ole Miss stock in 26 and beyond, where I think that would have been huge to be able, because you saw it. Like, we saw Charlie Weiss Jr. and Pete Golding as a tandem in the CFP, and they were awesome. It was like Ole Miss didn't miss a beat. I don't know if John David Baker, who was a good play caller this past year at East Carolina, I just don't know what he's going to be as a play caller at Ole Miss. Like, I know Charlie Weiss Jr. is an elite play caller. They can say they're keeping a lot of stuff, what worked last year and all that, but the guys are gone. Like, the offensive architects, like Joe Judge is still there, but the offensive architects and who were calling plays and were helping lead Trinidad and company on, like, they're gone. But Trinidad's an older player. I think they're going to be able to make it work this year. I don't think you're going to see an Ole Miss drop off in 2026. I think, like you said, the LSU game at home is just going to be so much dang fun. You get Auburn at home. You got to go to Texas. I don't think they're a playoff team, to be completely honest. I think they're losing to Oklahoma. I think they're losing to Georgia at home. I think they're losing at Texas. And I think they're going to lose one of LSU, at Vandy, at Florida. That's my gut. And I think they're going to be 8-4. But I think they're going to have really good offense. I think Trinidad's going to be really good. I just think they're going to take a slight step back. I think it's really hard to replicate what they did a year ago, especially on defense. I don't know. I just have some questions. I think they reloaded as best they could. I have questions about if the offense is going to be top 5. They need the offense to be a top 5 unit again with Trinidad to make the CFP to me. And I don't know. It's just a huge unknown in John David Baker and company, because will Trinidad and Keewan Lacey just being back be enough? I don't know. It's very possible. Deuce Alexander's back. But man, I don't know. Maybe they really need Caleb Cunningham, the former 5-star native Mississippi player. They need him maybe to break out. But I mean, you took the couple Syracuse guys, right? Darrell Gill Jr. and Jonte Cook at receiver. I don't know. They might just have less juice there. I took a lot, obviously, of transfer guys. Jonel Aguero from Athens. He's going to be one of their safeties, it looks like. So I don't know. I mean, they got some good players.
Is that a good thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Luke Farrelly from Clemson, and then Keaton Thomas, I think awesome. Perkins is a great player. So, I mean, they have a lot of talent, especially from the portal they added, but I just think they're like a 9-3-ish, 8-4 team to me. And I think I don't know. I think that's kind of where they're going to potentially the best case scenario long term under Pete Golding and company. I think they're probably like somewhere between the 7 to 9 win range most years, and then they have that 1 year like they did last year where they get double-digit wins and they make it through. So I don't know. I'm also just kind of more wait and see on Pete Golding over the course of a full year. What does a full year off season look like for him as the HC in Oxford? And like I said, if Charlie Weiss Jr. had stayed, I think I'm more bullish on Ole Miss right now and beyond.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think obviously Lane Kiffin built Ole Miss into what they are in recent history. But they also aren't a 1-year wonder, like this is a team that's has 4 double-digit win seasons in the last 5 years. Like I feel like there's a winning culture in Ole Miss now, and like they expect to win, and I think that goes a long way. It's almost I kind of think differently of the teams that are in a year one a head coach that he's coming in and rebuilding versus a year one head coach that's inheriting a really good program. Like you look at, I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I think year one of Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame was pretty damn good. If I remember correctly, like it wasn't necessarily a drop off, like you're having to rebuild or anything like that. So yeah, it'll be interesting. It's nice to have year one to come in with the foundation of potentially the best quarterback and the best running back in college football on your roster.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And he is a defensive-minded guy, so maybe he makes up for Lane Kiffin being a more offensive-minded guy.
The thing I worry about with Golding, though, and I think he's a good recruiter. I think recruiting will still be pretty strong under him. The Alabama years, like it's a good sign that Saban brought him in, but like the Golding, I don't know how much of it was on him. Like I don't know, because I mean, Golding was the defensive coordinator when Tennessee lit him up in 2022, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't know. Did you ever look at Pete Golding as an elite defensive coordinator? Like I knew Lane, and we've known Lane and Charlie Weiss Jr. are elite offensive minds. I don't know if Pete Golding's an elite defensive mind. I think he's a good defensive coordinator, but how many of those work in the SEC where it's like they're a pretty good defensive coordinator? I think it's so much tied to who he hires at OC. Like I think all of this comes down to what the offense looks like under Golding. Like he has to have an elite offensive coordinator to make this work long term to me. Because I just don't think he's going to be elite enough year over year with his defense. I don't think he's that kind of.
No, and
not many are.
Yeah, and that's fair. But I think, like you previously said, I don't think Nick Saban hires a guy to be D coordinator if he's not an elite defensive-minded coach. So I tend to trust Nick Saban knew what he was doing when he hired Jeremy Pruitt, when he hired Kirby Smart, when he hired all kinds of guys like Pete Golding. Yeah. Maybe he's not on Jeremy Pruitt and Kirby Smart's level as far as defensive guys go, and Jeremy Pruitt wasn't a very good head coach either. But I should also say to negate my previous point, Marcus Freeman did go 8-4, 9-4 after the bowl game, year one, following an 11-win season from Notre Dame. So, he did have 3 double-digit win seasons after that, but year one was his worst year in South Bend so far. So maybe that's what 2026 is for Ole Miss. It's a down year before they get back up. I don't know. We'll see.
We shall see, Matt Green.
I just love Trinidad Chambliss, man. He's a baller.
I think he's so much fun to watch. Now, NFL, we'll see. I'm not an NFL evaluator.
First overall, man, pick him.
You want to talk about something just like a fool's errand, man. It's trying to figure out which of these quarterbacks are going to make it in the NFL and which aren't. Like, it's so hard to, like, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are the best quarterbacks of the last, 15 years. Played at Wyoming and Texas Tech. And I don't think either of us, even watching Mahomes at Texas Tech, were like, that guy's going to be a multi-time Super Bowl champion and the best quarterback of his era. Like, it's so hard.
I'm glad you brought this up. This is a sidebar conversation for sure. We won't get off on a tangent here, but I made a proclamation that if Anthony Richardson or JJ McCarthy were good NFL quarterbacks, I would no longer give my opinion on which college quarterbacks would be good in the NFL. So I was standing on the table that those guys would be terrible in the NFL. So Anthony Richardson might not even make the roster here in year 3. So I feel good about that. Not to celebrate others' misery, but I do feel that I can still have an opinion now that Anthony Richardson, and it's still early on JJ McCarthy, but no one's a fan of JJ McCarthy. I don't know how he got picked top 10. That still blows my mind.
National champion, undefeated.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the breakdown, like the splits of like after the Connor Stallions stuff was uncovered? It's his stats are night and day, like before Connor Stallions and after I should say before the scandal was uncovered. Once they got in trouble for Connor Stallions, his stats are nowhere close after that. So I don't know. Still salty 2023 Georgia didn't take care of business in the SEC championship, because I think they would have gone back to back if they could have matched up with that Michigan team. But it is what it is. They didn't take care of business in the SEC championship, got left out.
Was there some Matt Henson to him? Was that his name? The guy who was starting over Brady?
Matt Henson.
Quarterback for the Cowboys for a bit.
The baseball player. Drew Henson.
Drew Henson, yeah.
Yes.
There's some Drew Henson to him a little bit.
I don't even remember what kind of player Drew Henson was. He played for Dallas for a second, bit. Right?
Didn't he get replaced by Romo?
That sounds about right. That's somewhere around the same timeline. Or did he get replaced by Quincy Carter? I don't know. He was somewhere
Quincy
around
Carter. There. No, Quincy was. No,
I mean, if he was in the college at the same time as Tom Brady, he had to be around Quincy Carter's Dallas Cowboy era, like 02, 03.
Yeah.
I
think he was after, if I'm not mistaken.
Did Drew Henson ever start a game in the NFL?
Did Drew Henson? Yeah.
Yeah.
He definitely started for the Cowboys.
All right, we'll look it up. But
Drew
go
Henson,
ahead.
Let's remember some guys.
Yeah, you can move on.
South Carolina, Matt Green, buy or sell 2026 here.
What are we selling? What is the criteria here for South Carolina?
So for me, just speaking from my vantage point, buy or selling, I think it's hard to think about their future year to year, because I think Shane Beamer is one of the more year to year coaches. Like, I think he's a hot seat candidate going into this year. New AD, I think he came in from TCU, if I'm not mistaken. They just got Kevin Schnall to take over their baseball program from Coastal. He made the College World Series last year, or 2 years ago, I guess now. But I don't know. You had a big swing. You keep roll. Like, it's never a great sign when you have a new offensive coordinator every year. Like, I feel bad for Shane in the sense that, like, Dal Loggins was a good OC hire that I was skeptical on at the time coming in from the NFL ranks. I didn't think those Chicago Bears and Miami Dolphins offenses or anything to write home about. So I just was kind of skeptical on that one, but he got the absolute most out of Lenora Sellers and company, where we were thinking Lenora Sellers was a first overall pick candidate. It did not go well, obviously, with Shula this past year, but he went back and hired Kendall Briles, who put up some big time numbers with Josh Hoover and Sonny Dykes at TCU the last 2 years. I think that's a more inspired hire for Beamer, but it's kind of that Golding thing to me, where it's just, you really need some stability at the offensive coordinator spot, because he's had Clayton White, who has been an elite defensive coordinator for years, nailed that hire. They're going to have some absolute dudes on the edge with Dylan Stewart and company again. Like, I think they're going to be able to get after the quarterback. The defense is going to be good. So it seems like it always is at South Carolina. They got some interesting home games. I mean, Tennessee's got to go there, and I don't know how that's going to go for Tennessee. Hasn't gone well the last couple trips to Columbia. I just think it's hard for me to think about their future, because so much is on how they do this year. Because if you go 4-8, you have another disaster like you did last year, he's out. So it's hard for me to look at it, but I'm buying them this year. I am buying South Carolina in 2026 individually, because I think Kendall Briles will get a lot more out of Lenora Sellers. I think they have some more juice than they did a year ago. I kind of like this South Carolina roster. I don't know if you feel the same. I mean, I'd like it better if their tackles weren't ravaged by just injury. Like, it seems like he's snake bit in that regard, because he tries to address some of these big deals. and they get hurt. You got who was the right tackle they took, because they have Jacarius Peak, and who was the other one who already got hurt? And I don't remember who the other tackle was. But I mean, you got a 5-star guard in Darius Gray. He's a true freshman, probably not going to play this year, but your whole entire offensive line is transfers. I don't know what that looks like, but Nitro Tuggle, your old friend, he might be starting at one of those spots on the outside. Nick Harbor, is this the year? People have been trying to talk themselves into Nick Harbor. You have Jaden Sellers and Mazio Bennett. I think that's pretty solid in the slot. Donovan Murph, interesting. Matt Fuller, Christian Clark at tailback. Lenore Sellers, obviously, he has the talent, and we've talked about the defense. I mean, you have dudes across the board there. Caleb Herring making the transfer. You have Julian Walker in there. A lot of dudes on that front. But I think I'm buying South Carolina. I kind of like their schedule a little bit in 26, so I'm buying Shane to right the ship, and they don't have the kind of disaster season they had a year ago. I think they're going to get somebody.
See, those are two different conversations, because I definitely think they're going to get somebody, if not multiple somebodies. I think we kind of joke about South Carolina a lot. I think they're the ultimate team that like can't handle expectations. Like it just that 2024 team was a really good team. Like that, I think there was a lot of people that thought that team should have made the playoff the way they were playing by the end of the season, and some of the wins they had on their resume. And then you had actual expectations in 2025, and they just crashed and burned. So, yeah, you said Nicholas Harbor, you got Dylan Stewart, like two of the freakiest athletes in the entire conference. I mean, Lenore Sellers is one of the freakier athletes in the conference. I just don't know what to expect from them on a week in, week out basis. I tend to think they'll go to a bowl game, but like, I don't know. I mean, you look at the schedule at Alabama, yet that month of October, I guess it's not. I mean, at Florida, Florida is one of the harder teams to predict. So going at Florida is never going to be easy for anybody. But then they get the bye week, and then it's Tennessee, it's at Oklahoma, it's Texas A&M, at Arkansas, and then Georgia and Clemson to finish the season. Like after that bye week, like they could go 1-6 after the bye week. Like, and I wouldn't be surprised. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1-5 after the bye week, and I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. So.
Wow.
I think they have a couple games like Tennessee and Georgia at home that like I think Williams-Brice Stadium, they're gonna get up and beat somebody.
A&M too.
A&M, yeah, A&M's another home game. So I think they're a dangerous team. I also feel like, man, were they up 30-0 on A&M that game they blew a year ago? Like that
Marcel
also
Reed
feels
threw like 13 picks.
Yeah, that also, it's crazy. Like just me and my friends in the group thread, just how we all knew it was going to happen. Like it was like by the second possession of the second half, you're like, South Carolina's going to blow this game. Like they were still that up 4 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns by that point, but you could just feel it. They were going to blow this thing. I don't know. I feel like that game almost feels like it's going to be the game you point to as the beginning of the end of the Shane Beamer era. So I could see him going 6-6 this year. And if they go 6-6, like, are you bringing Shane Beamer back? Like 2024
it's a hard job, man.
It is a hard job. And the 2024 team was good. And that's only 2 years ago. So it might be that job that, if you're good once every 3 years, you accept that at South Carolina. But I don't know. I don't know if that's buying or selling based on the definition we had.
I think you're selling.
I think I am selling because I think they'll upset someone that's ranked this year. But it's like they're going to have to do more than that to be like a legitimate, like good team that wins 7 or 8 games. I don't see that happening with South Carolina. So yeah, I'll say I'm selling.
I'm buying. I think, it's A&M.
And you think they win 7 or 8 games?
I think 7, and I think that's fine. I think 7, and it's like kind of like a optimistic 7, where fans feel good. You're like,
and Clemson's not great or anything this year, so
they're going to beat Clemson. That's one I would put in. I think they're going to beat Clemson in Death Valley.
But also with all those games I mentioned from October on, like I didn't even mention the September 26th going at Alabama. Like that's probably an early loss as well. So I don't know.
Am I mistaken, or did they play Alabama really well last year too?
They definitely played them well in 2024.
And that was at Bama, right? Shouldn't they have beaten them at Tuscaloosa? Am I misremembering that?
I feel like last year was really close too.
because they had LSU on the ropes, obviously, and we've talked about what happened there. But I want to say they should have beat Alabama too in 24. Yeah, it was 29-22 last year.
Yeah, they definitely could have won that game a year ago. And then 2024, it was it even closer? 27-25 in 2024. Yeah. And that was at Alabama. I can't remember how it ended, but yeah, those are two winnable games that's the last 2 years against Alabama, but I don't know. I don't think I'm buying the Shane Beamer experiment. I think this is the end. If I had to pick one coach in the SEC to get fired, I think I would pick Shane Beamer.
Interesting.
Granted, there's half the conference has only been at their school for like a year or two. So there's not a lot of candidates right now in the SEC to get fired. I think Shane Beamer's got to be at the top of the list, right?
I think Texas fan. I mean, here's what I'll say. I would say DeBoer and Sark. I would say DeBoer and Sark are my top two. And I don't think it's reasonable. And I'm not saying they should be top two. I just think those would be the least surprising to me. If I was thinking, like, if the season's, there's just so much pressure on those two coaches, and the fan base has such high expectations that if neither make the playoff this year, would it really shock you if Texas or Alabama moved on? If Bama went 8-4 or Texas went 8-4, they moved on from their coach?
I just don't see that happening with Texas. I think DeBoer would probably be second on my list because DeBoer could go 9-3 and get fired because it's
That's
Alabama.
What I'm saying. Yeah, my sneaky one that I think is out no matter what is Drinkwitz at Mizzou.
See, I don't think I agree with that. I think Drinkwitz he's been fairly consistent.
I don't think he's getting fired, to be clear. I think he's leaving for another job. I think this is going to be like a down year, and he was I feel like he was in the mix for like 13 jobs this cycle, right? Like Penn State and Florida and Auburn. I feel like his name was popping up everywhere. I don't know. It doesn't seem like that's a marriage built to last past this year to me. No, Ahmad Hardy stuff sucks, and I hope he's healthy and get back. But like, I'm not an Austin Simmons believer. I think they have less talent they did a year ago. I could see a 4-8, 5-6. Like if they barely get bowling, I would be surprised if he's back. You know, I don't know. I could just see like a split there.
I just don't think 2026 is the year he gets fired. I could see him being the guy that's like got the hottest seat going into 2027. But yeah, I mean, it's also, and I should say it's a caveat of just there's not a lot of guys on the hot seat right now. I mean, it's Kiffin, Golding, Summerall, Will Stein, Silverfield, Alex Golish. Like that's like 6 or 7 coaches that are in year one of a new place. So there's a lot of, and DeBoer is only year 3. So there's a lot of guys that are pretty new at their current schools. So there's not. Shane Beamer is one of the few that feels like he's hit his ceiling. And, you know, they went 9-4. It was only a couple years ago. So they go 7-5. He's definitely not getting fired. But I think if they miss a bowl game, I think he's probably done.
Kalen DeBoer is the oldest third-year coach in the history of the sport.
Yeah, he's been through it for sure.
Like, he has been through it, man. He is the oldest year 3 coach I've come across in a long time. But, hey, you signed out to replace Nick Saban. Them's the breaks.
That's
final
true.
one here, Mac.
Hold on, before we get back to this, let's go back to our tangent conversation that we were talking about with the Dallas Cowboys. Drew Henson started one game in his career in 2004. So Quincy Carter was the starter in 2003. Yeah. Then 2004, Vinny Testaverde was the guy. Drew Henson got one start that year, and then 2005, Drew Bledsoe.
Yeah,
and then 2006, Rizwan Romo took over. So
okay.
For those NFL fans out there, that was the Drew Henson experience. Didn't last very long in Dallas.
I thought it was more than one. I thought he got a couple.
Was he on the Yankees as well, or did he maybe just in the farm system? I don't know if he ever actually played for the Yankees.
It's a good question.
He definitely was drafted in baseball for sure.
And I feel like he didn't have 5 stars back in the 90s, but it's a big deal. I mean, he was starting over Brady, Michigan.
Yeah,
talented 2-sport athlete, but yeah, did not work at the next level.
Drew Henson and Drew Bledsoe both had that in common in the Cowboys locker room.
That's true. He's another one. I feel bad for Bledsoe. Good dude. I read the Dynasty over here. It's somewhere on the wall behind me, way up there. But great book. I like Drew. good teammate, and he's
Really
kind of
good
just
player
forgotten.
too.
Yeah, because he was right before Brady, and he's right before the greatest quarterback of all time. But it's like Drew Bledsoe is one of the greats. Like Drew Bledsoe was an awesome quarterback and kind of saved the Pats in a lot of
Yeah.
ways of where they were as franchise. But yeah, cannot give enough flowers to Drew Bledsoe, the quarterback. Great at Wazoo, Rose Bowl man. Yeah, shout out to Drew Bledsoe.
Heisman runner-up, I want to say,
Yeah.
or maybe that's. I know Ryan Leaf was runner-up. I don't know. He was up there. I think he was really good at Washington State. Georgia great Mo Lewis changed NFL history with that hit on Drew Bledsoe for the Jets.
That sucked, man. Yeah, it really did change everything.
Yeah. Also, another tangent we're going off on. That's my biggest beef with like these roasts that they do on Netflix and Comedy Central is they don't have like people who actually like the person. They just hire professional comedians to just say the most offensive things possible. The Drew Bledsoe like part of the Tom Brady roast was one of the better like roasters on that because it was
I didn't
kind of
watch it.
It was pretty good, but yeah, I mean, it was a lot of it just like the typical just saying offensive stuff. But the Drew Bledsoe was like actually making some jokes. He was like he made a joke about like, Tom, this is a lot like this room in here feels a lot like the first round of the NFL draft. You wouldn't know anything about that. It was just kind of like making the like getting the digs in where he could. But yeah, it was like I want to see more of like people who actually know the person and tell like personal jokes, not just the most offensive racist joke they can tell because there's a black guy being roasted, like the Kevin Hart thing. But yeah, we'll end it there. But yeah, that was the Drew Bledsoe was probably the best part of that roast to me.
Or Norm with Bob Saget, close friend.
Yeah,
remember?
Exactly.
Where he just refused to roast Bob Saget, so he just did the worst dad jokes and just kept doing. Folks, he's a Rolling Stone.
Absolutely. R.I.P. Norm.
So good. Well, Matt Green, final one. Your team right here, the Georgia Bulldogs, sir. What say you? Folks, let me go ahead and jot this down. I think Matt Green might buy the Georgia Bulldogs in 2026 and beyond.
Yeah, I think so, sir. May not be on. I think Georgia's going to lose a lot from this 2026 roster, but I'm not just a homer here. I was as skeptical as I've ever been of a Kirby Smart team going into 2025. Like, I'm not ashamed to admit when I have bad takes, but I said going into 2025, we didn't even know if Gunnar Stockton was better than like a Brock Vandagriff. At that point, we didn't know anything about Gunnar Stockton. So the quarterback position was a complete unknown. You also, every Georgia season, maybe there's an offensive tackle, maybe there's 2 or 3 running backs, or not running backs, 2 or 3 defensive players that you're just like, yeah, he's a top 10 pick. He's a top 20 pick. You just went into Georgia's season last year not really knowing anybody. Like Dalen Everett was probably the guy getting the most preseason love. CJ Allen maybe going into last year, and CJ Allen ended up being a second rounder. I think Dalen Everett was either third round, I think, to the Saints, to the Steelers. It was just a very unproven roster. I feel like last year Georgia, was a low-key rebuilding season. And this year, Georgia brings back just about everybody. Obviously, you did lose one first rounder with Monroe Freeling on the offensive line, but you're bringing back 3, kind of 4 starters on that offensive line, a couple of true freshmen that started most of the season, Dontrell Glover and Juan Gaston. Drew Bobo is getting some All-American love at center, at least All-SEC love at center. This defense, I think, is going to be back to being an elite unit. Like last year, they at least got back to being an elite run defense. Like I think they gave up like 3 yards a carry on the ground. But early on, you saw them take their lumps. Like the Tennessee game, like that secondary was getting torched. Like the Ole Miss game, Ole Miss scored touchdowns on their first 5 possessions of the game. But you saw that secondary grow a lot. I think Ellis Robinson is going to be one of the best corners in college football this year. I think Ellis Robinson, KJ Bolden, they look like first rounders to me. Chris Cole looks like a first rounder to me. And Gunnar Stockton, has there ever been a returning quarterback who finished top 7 in the Heisman voting that there's been like less hype, just like more, maybe not even less hype, but just more criticism of than Gunnar Stockton? Like, I can't really remember one. Like, I'm not saying Gunnar Stockton should be getting more hype than he's getting. I just think Gunnar Stockton has proven to be a good player. Is he a great player? I don't know. That remains to be seen. But it's interesting to me for a guy who was as good as he was a year ago, especially like the intangible stuff, like being good on fourth down or in the fourth quarter and being good on third down and that sort of stuff, like the comeback wins, all that kind of stuff. Like I feel like Gunnar Stockton is a really good player at quarterback, and I think that's all Georgia really needs is to have a really good player. They don't need him to be a first rounder. It'd be damn good if he was a first rounder, but I look at Georgia's schedule, and we talked about it obviously earlier, and you get Alabama and Ole Miss on the road and Oklahoma at home. Those are definitely three of the 5 teams that made the playoff, with obviously Georgia being one of the playoff teams in the SEC a year ago. So it's not an easy schedule, but it feels manageable. I think this Georgia team, if we're buying national championship is really the standard for Georgia. I think if Georgia makes the playoff, I think that's to be expected, right? They've been a 2 seed and a 3 seed in the first 2 12-team playoffs. So I think it's easy to say, yeah, Georgia should probably be a playoff team. Not guaranteed, but I think most people would think that Georgia's going to be a playoff team. I think they are one of the short list teams that I'll say last year. That's why I never kind of subscribe to the national championship or bust kind of thing. I just don't really think it makes sense. If it's national championship or the season was a disappointment, I think you could kind of put that on Georgia in 2026. Like, I think Georgia has their sights set on the national championship, and anything less than that, it's like, yeah, it's going to be a disappointing season. If they go, what was their record last year? Was it 12-2? Yeah, 11-1, won the SEC, then lost the first playoff game. Obviously, you're the 2-3 seed, losing the Sugar Bowl, the round of 8 for the 3rd year in a row. That's going to be super disappointing. But and I think it's reasonable to be disappointing. But no one's firing Mark Richt. No one's firing Kirby Smart. No one's firing Mike Bobo if Georgia goes 12-2 again in 2026. Maybe if they lose in the round of 8, I don't know. Maybe something changes. I don't think Georgia tends to operate that way. So I think it's reasonable, and it's not just being just a crazy fanatic college football fan to think it's a failure if Georgia doesn't win a national championship. I think they are one of those few teams that I would say if they don't win anything less than national championship is kind of a disappointment. And I think Georgia should reasonably expect to win a national championship this year. So I am personally buying Georgia because I think they're as good as anyone in the SEC, and whether that means they're good enough to beat the best team in the Big Ten. The last 3 years it hasn't been, but we'll see. I think I would say I'm buying Georgia to expect a national championship this year.
I'm just not buying any SEC to win a national championship this year until it happens again. Like we have to see the paradigm shift back a little bit. It's not like they're never going to win it again, but we're going on 3 years in a row. And if you look at the top of the Big Ten, I'm taking the top of the Big Ten versus the top of the SEC this year. I think there are better options. I mean, Ohio State, you look at Indiana again, you look at Oregon, who's more loaded than they've ever been. This could be the breakthrough year for Lanning. I mean, Notre Dame, I think, is better. Like I would say on paper right now, I would say Notre Dame, Ohio State, Oregon have better rosters and should have higher national title bust expectations than Texas or Georgia in the SEC. I think those 4, to me, off the top of my head, I'd probably lean.
You said Ohio State, Oregon, Notre Dame, Texas, and Georgia?
No, Oregon. What did I say? Notre Dame, Oregon, Ohio State. I'm missing somebody else.
Did you say Indiana as part of that group?
Indiana, I wouldn't say. I think this is not as strong of a roster as it was last year. And I don't think Hoover is going to be as good as Fernando. So there was a lot of NFL draft talent that just went off this Indiana roster. I think they're going to be really good. The schedule's very nice again, and it's going to stay nice because of their out of conference schedule. But I'm selling Michigan. We'll talk some Michigan here at some point, but I'm selling Michigan in 2026. I just think Texas, Georgia, and Oklahoma are just bundled together at the top of the SEC. And I just don't have championship or bust for any of those 3. And I don't know. I mean, I just think the top end, where the thing with Georgia to me that I think is probably the most fascinating on the outside looking in is Does Kirby, the final thing he has to adjust in this era is like, man, you're just not like he bet on Taylor. He bet on Sokobe White-Helton. He has bet on Blackshear. He's bet on
CJ
Wiley that they're going to do what Tennessee receivers are doing. Like Mike had a breakout year. Braylon Staley had a breakout year. They're going to have Tennessee is only in-house guys. They have no portal guys. It's all, but it works.
Shout out London Humphreys as well. He's back.
Right. But I'm just saying, like we talked about it, Isaiah Canyon was their big splurge in the portal at receiver. Last year was Zachariah Branch. Zachariah Branch was a 5-star guy who just like you're like, yeah, if he wants to come here, we're taking Zachariah Branch. He's a difference maker. He was huge for Georgia. You didn't do that this year. You took a productive guy, but like not the same talent. Like I think he was a 3-star in high school. Isaiah Canyon was. Like this is not the same. Like you put him in our system, we get like I'm not saying star ratings are everything, but we talked about it. Like you're waiting on next year for Taylor and Wiley and those guys to really be asked to be starters and go through. Not taking a huge sign, and I'm not saying you could have whatever you could have done to get Chris Coleman, as we talked about Cam Coleman last week, but like I think they missed out by not getting one big portal name at receiver. I think Georgia, and I forgot who I was listening to talk about, they don't deserve the benefit of the doubt at receiver anymore with their 1,000-yard receiver drought and everything else. It's like, it's great to believe in them. At least we'll see what Taylor and Wiley and everybody talks about, but that's not this year. I just think they messed up because you have these national title or bust expectations and you're loaded in so many spots. Your offensive line is going to be awesome. Your tight ends are awesome. Your defensive line is going to be great. I think their pass rush is going to be really strong. I think they're super strong at linebacker. Like they're loaded in all kinds of ways. But when you're this close, if you're Kirby, I don't know. It's easier said than done being on the outside, but I'm going to bat with my people. Like the final thing to make sure that I feel really good about our national title, we have to get a receiver. We have to go pay somebody. We have to go get one big name. Like we just need one. And they didn't get one. They have 3 just kind of okay guys. And maybe it won't end up mattering when it's all said and done. Georgia wins the national title. That could absolutely still happen. The tight ends are going to be heavily featured in this offense anyway. But I don't know. I think Kirby not going big in the portal at receiver is the one that I'm like, I wonder if it's going to bite him in the butt because this team has the talent everywhere else to win a national title. But the receiver room just leaves a lot to be desired in 2026, even if 2027 is a breakout year for those in-house guys you bet on. And again, it's a big risk rolling the dice with all those dudes.
Yeah, I think it's fair to an extent. I don't think there's a lot of those guys out there in the portal that were just like, you plug him and he's a star. Like Cam Coleman, I think was the one. Like Eric Singleton Jr., like I think he's been good, he obviously didn't do much at Auburn because none of the receivers did much at Auburn because of everything going on there. But Isaiah Canyon was ranked and 24/7, the 8th ranked receiver in the portal. Like I think he is, a big time guy to get. I don't know if he's, I don't think he's Zachariah Branch. That might be unrealistic to expect to get a guy that good out of the portal. I tend to think the Georgia 1,000-yard receiver thing is just an overrated narrative personally. For one, Georgia's had a bunch of 900-yard wide receivers in the last 10, 20 years. But it's just, I think with how Georgia wants to do things, and obviously you look at the team that won 2 national championships, those were the teams that had the most loaded playmakers with Brock Bowers, with Ladd McConkey, with A.D. Mitchell. But at the same time, you look at the production from those years, like A.D. Mitchell missed most of the 22 season. He was around for the playoff. Ladd McConkey missed, 5-6 games in 2023. Brock Bowers missed 4 or 5 games in 2023. So Georgia's been able to do it without having the most NFL talent per se at that wide receiver position. Also, Ladd McConkey and A.D. Mitchell, not exactly 5 stars coming out of high school either. Both those guys were 3 stars. So Taylor was a 5-star coming out, and he's in his 2nd year on campus. So that the wide receiver position, I think, is definitely the biggest area of concern in terms of just the most unproven position. It helps that you can balance that by having maybe the most loaded tight end room in college football. And, Caden Prothro, a true freshman tight end who's probably going to play wide receiver, state of Georgia's all-time leading receiver in high school, just an absolute 6'7" freak. So I think Georgia's got a lot of playmakers. I think the running game is good. The pass rush, like you mentioned, like I'm hoping that's back to being good, but it was one of the worst in the SEC a year ago in terms of getting sacks. So that's going to have to improve this year. But they just have so much returning on defense. I think your statement about those 5 teams, I think there really are only 5 teams in college football that their expectation is national championship or it was a disappointing season. I think that short list of Ohio State, Oregon, Notre Dame, Georgia, and Texas, I think that's about it. I think there's not other teams that can win a national championship, a Miami or someone like that, Oklahoma even.
We should definitely throw Miami. Miami could absolutely win the national title this year.
There's more teams that could win a national championship, but I don't think it's a failure if Miami doesn't win a national championship this year. So I think those, and not to say a failure, but that's the standard I think each of those top 5 teams are being judged at. I think honestly the most, without getting off on a tangent, I think the most overrated of that bunch is probably Oregon, because I think in 2025 Oregon was just not nearly as good as they were hyped up to be. Like, I don't know. They didn't beat like anyone a year ago. And then they got to the playoff and they beat James Madison and Texas Tech. It's like this team got to the Final Four by beating James Madison and Texas Tech. Like that's wild to me. And they had regular season, they obviously lost to the team that ended up winning the national championship. They lost to them twice. So they had a quality loss on their regular season schedule, but they had almost no quality wins. So we're kind of anointing Dante Moore as the best quarterback in college football, and Oregon being this national title or bust type team. And I'm not necessarily sure how good they were. It felt like the 2024 team was better than the 2025 team that got further in the playoffs. So I don't know. I obviously just said they are national title or bust because I think that's kind of the perception that's being laid on them. And obviously 4 of those 5 teams, assuming one of those 5 teams wins it all, 4 of those are going to be disappointed, right? Only one team is going to win the national championship. I think Oregon is just the least likely to do it in 2026, personally.
Lanning's got to win some big games, but the top end talent for Oregon this year, man, is just, it's a good bunch, man. They went and got Minnesota's best player at safety, Coy Parrish. I think he was the best prospect in the state of Minnesota in his class.
Yeah, he was a
Uungale, Bear Alexander back for another year. You got him in there.
I'll believe it when I see it. He's now on school number 3.
Yeah, but hey, he's back for another year. And then you look at
I guess that's a plus, staying somewhere for 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good player.
I'm not sure he stayed at the same high school for 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. He's all over the place. But
Evan Stewart back from injury. We'll see what that looks like. He's kind of a forgotten man in that room.
That's fair. I was a huge
Jeremiah McClellan. Like that's a receiver unit, man. That Dante Moore's got some horses.
No, that's fair. I was very high on Evan Stewart coming out of A&M, and obviously didn't do anything last year with the injury. So they got talent for sure. I'm not saying Oregon isn't a really good team, but we'll see. They need to beat somebody.
That's fair. All right, Matt Green, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over at Georgia Voice College Football this week?
Yeah, check us out every Monday live at 7:00. This week we'll be doing our official season predictions. So we'll be going game by game, as well as some predicting the individual offensive stats and everything. So it'll be a fun show. One of our higher rated shows a year ago we did back in 2025. So I hope that people check it out and see how terribly wrong we are about all of our individual stat predictions by the end of the season. No, this is just gonna be one of the harder years to predict individual stats for Georgia. Like the tight end room, especially, like you could give me any order of like how the top 4 tight ends in Georgia's room shake out, like Lawson Lucky, Elias Williams, Jaden Riddell, or Ethan Barbour. Like I have no idea what the pecking order is going to be. And obviously we talked about how unproven the receiver room is. So, but it'll be a lot of fun just talking and making our predictions, and just looking forward to the Georgia football season, sir. So we're 20 days away right now till week 1, and I'm excited for it.
It cannot get here soon enough, man. August is a tough sports month for all us sports fans. It's a tough month.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I think this is the most exciting. We're definitely past talking season. You know, we're seeing fall camp and all this kind of stuff. So we're at least getting more than just talking. But yeah, I feel like this is when the anticipation for the season is really ramping up.
Matt Green, always a pleasure, and I'll talk to you again next week.
Yes, sir.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.